Right now, 4 miles off the coast of Folkestone, in 28 metres of water, the SS Kielce is sitting in pieces on the floor of the English Channel. She has been there since 1946. Inside what is left of her hull, and scattered across a crater on the seabed around her, is enough live wartime ordnance to produce roughly 1/7 the yield of the Hiroshima bomb. The British government knows exactly where she is, and they have the technology to reach her. So why, for 58 years, has nobody been willing to? Now, I do not mean why she sank. If you are watching this, you probably already know the basics of that story. A small Polish freighter, loaded with surplus wartime ammunition, collided with another ship in the English Channel one night in 1946 and went down in shallow water off the coast of Kent. That part is not the mystery. What I want to know is why, after the British government tried as hard as it has ever tried to clear a single wreck, the SS Kielce is still down there with live ordnance inside her in 2026. Because this is not a battleship 3 miles down in the Atlantic that nobody can reach. She is in 28 metres of water, 4 miles from a beach. To understand why nobody is willing to touch her now, you have to start with what she actually was, because almost everything written about the Kielce online gets her wrong. She was not a Liberty ship, and she was not 7,000 tons. Both of those figures get repeated all over the internet, and both of them are confused with the SS Richard Montgomery, a much larger and more famous wreck further north in the Thames estuary. The real Kielce was a Type N 3-S-A2 coastal cargo ship, built at Pennsylvania Shipyard in Beaumont, Texas in 1943, and she was small, around 250 feet long, around 1,896 gross tons, roughly the size of a cross-channel ferry, not a battleship. She was handed to Poland in 1944 under Lend-Lease, given a Polish name and a Polish crew, and put to work hauling timber across the channel. By March 1946, the Polish crew had gone home, and she was crewed by 35 British merchant seamen sailing under the British flag on a route that should have been forgettable. On the night of the 5th of March 1946, in poor visibility in the narrowest part of the English Channel, she collided with a steamer called the Lombardy. The collision was severe enough to hole her below the waterline, and she was taking on water faster than her pumps could handle. The crew got off safely, but the Kielce went down before morning in 28 metres of water, 4 miles off Folkestone. The Royal Navy looked at her, looked at the cargo manifest, and decided she was not coming up. The cargo was unstable, and any attempt to raise her risked igniting it during the lift. So they marked her on the charts, posted a warning to mariners, and left her where she was. She sat there for 21 years. By the mid-1960s, the British government had concluded that Kielce could not be left indefinitely, because the cargo was not getting safer with time, it was getting more sensitive. Fuses were aging, casings were corroding, so the decision was made to clear her. And this is the bit most coverage gets wrong as well. The operation was not run by the Royal Navy. The contractor was a private firm called the Folkestone Salvage Company. The plan was to lower a cutting charge into what was left of the wreck, fire it, and let sympathetic detonation do the rest of the work. At 11:59 in the morning on the 22nd of July 1967, a summer Tuesday with holidaymakers on the beaches, they fired the third charge, and the cargo went with it. What the third charge hit, or how its shockwave travelled through the corroding hull, no one knows for certain. The detonation registered as a magnitude 4.5 event on the Richter scale, picked up by 25 seismographic observatories across Europe and North America. By the time the seabed had stopped moving, the yield was estimated at around 2,000 tons of TNT equivalent. What it left behind was a crater 153 feet long, 67 feet wide and 20 feet deep. In Folkestone, chimneys came down, ceilings cracked, and roof slates were dislodged across the town. When the Royal Navy divers went down in the days that followed, the wreck was not gone. She was broken into multiple sections, scattered across an area roughly 120 metres by 80 metres, with debris pushed up into a 5 to 11 foot lip around the new crater. And inside what was left of her, and buried in the sand and rubble around her, was an unknown but significant quantity of ordnance that had not detonated.
Now this is the bit that got me when I was researching this. I went back and checked it twice. Once because I did not believe it, and once to be sure I had read it right. Among the live ordnance still inside the broken hull of the Kielce and scattered across the crater around her is a quantity of white phosphorus. Smoke bombs, mostly. White phosphorus is not like the rest of the cargo. It does not need a fuse. It does not need a detonator. It does not need a shockwave or a spark or a heat source. The only thing white phosphorus needs to ignite is contact with air. The moment a corroded casing wall fails and oxygen reaches the fill, it burns at roughly 2,760 degrees Fahrenheit. Underwater, it is stable. The casing is the only thing keeping it that way. This is the part that changes how you read the rest of the story. The Kielce is not sitting still on the bottom of the channel. She is corroding on a clock, and the clock ends the moment a casing wall fails. So why, knowing all of this, has nobody finished what 1967 started? Quick break before I get to the rest of it. I keep thinking about the choice the British government is sitting with right now, and I am genuinely curious what you would do. You can leave her where she is, knowing the casings are corroding and that one day a wall is going to fail. The longer you wait, the worse the geometry gets. Or you can try again. You can send modern equipment down to a wreck in pieces on the seabed in shallow water 4 miles from a town and try to clear what is left of her. And nobody, not the engineers, not the chemists, not the government, can tell you in advance how big a second detonation would be. The first one was the largest in peacetime British history, and it did not finish the job. There is no good option. If you have a thought on which one you would have picked, the comments on these videos tend to be more interesting than the videos themselves, at least to me. And if you find yourself watching to the end of these, the subscribe button is right there too. I really do appreciate it. Back to it. The reason nobody has finished what 1967 started is not the one most people would assume. The Kielce is sitting in a section of the English Channel that the United Kingdom needs. Any project that puts equipment on the seabed in the southern North Sea now has to file an unexploded ordnance threat assessment first, and the Kielce's exclusion zone is one of the named hazards. So every offshore wind farm, every submarine power cable, and every gas pipeline that has been proposed since has had to route around her. A 1946 sinking of one small Polish freighter is currently shaping the physical routing of 21st century British energy infrastructure. And even that has not been enough to make anyone touch her. The second reason is stranger. Diving on the wreck is prohibited. The exclusion zone is on every chart. And yet there is a record on file with the receiver of wreck, the Crown Office that registers items recovered from the sea. The record is called Droit 159/03. It logs the recovery of a brass junction box and 8 live .50 caliber rounds from the Kielce wreck. Somebody went down on a prohibited site, came back up with live ordnance and filed the paperwork with the Crown. The record does not say who they were, and it does not say if they were authorised. The exclusion zone is not actually keeping people out, and yet a state-led clearance is still off the table. And there is one more factor, and it is the one that closes the question. There is a second wreck off the British coast that demonstrates what the Kielce did to British policy. The SS Richard Montgomery sits in 15 metres of water, a mile and a half from Sheerness in the Thames estuary, with her masts still visible above the surface at all states of the tide.
She has approximately 1,400 tons of munitions inside her, including white phosphorus smoke bombs of her own, and she has never been touched. In April 2026, the British government began a £9.5 million project to remove her masts before they collapse inward onto the holds. They are not removing the bombs, they are removing the masts. The reason they are not removing the bombs is the Kielce. The 2000 government survey of the Richard Montgomery names the Kielce explosion specifically and says it reinforced the decision to recommend a policy of non-interference. That policy is still in force. To go back for the Kielce is not just to risk a second detonation, it is to overturn the precedent that has held the line on every other British munitions wreck for the last 58 years. The SS Kielce is still there because in 1946 she was too unstable to raise. By 1967 she was too dangerous to leave, and the attempt to clear her made her harder to clear, not easier. And now she is too entangled in the precedent she set for any government to be the one that goes back. The technology to reach her exists, the willingness to use it does not. These wrecks have a particular kind of finality. They do not get cleared, they do not get raised. They get a line on a chart, a warning to mariners, and a long silence. If you watched the Scharnhorst video on this channel, you have seen a wreck that the world agreed to leave alone for the men still inside her. The Kielce is the version of that story where the world left her alone for what she might still do. If a particular ship comes to mind that you would like me to look into next, leave a note in the comments. I read every one. I will see you next time.